Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Quint-essentials, our top 5 of anything and everything Warhammer. And today you're joining me, the Oracle, for my inaugural Quint-essential. I've been saying inaugural a lot in my videos, but I quite like it. But either way, I'm glad to be doing this, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 army books as voted by you. Now I'm excited to get into this. I feel like there'll be people that probably may well know my top 5, may well think they know my top 5, but I'm going to run it down for you guys, and I'm excited to see what you guys think. So without any further ado, let's get into my top 5. Now for me, the 5th choice is the Vampire Counts. Now I know that some people might be thinking, oh, you know, is that a top 5 choice? Should it be higher? Should it not even be in the top 5? But for me, I think one of the things that really stands out about them is that they're such a balanced book. Now, alongside everything being undead, obviously immune to fear, terror, panic, all of that, it's, you know, they ignore a lot of the rules of the game already, which is great. But, as I said, for me, they're just a really balanced book. Every choice is takeable, in my opinion. Even some things you might look at and go, well, a zombie on paper, you know, who really cares? But they get so many of them for no cost. You see blocks of 40, 50, 60, and even some of the best combat units in the game, just because of the frontage, struggle to chop through that many models. And with their ability to get stuff back, I think it makes them really tough. I think they're always a hard game, and you know, combined with the law of magic, all quite low casts, get wounds back, rerolls to hit, rerolls to wound. It makes them quite a terrifying prospect in most games. And the thing with it as well is that all of those spells are just really tough for a lot of people to have answers to. They're really low cast values with things like the Book of Arcane. They can get access to multiple magical moves, get wounds back, lots of cheap wizards. It just makes them really hard to come up against. With the right person at the helm, they can be devastating for people to come up against. Things like the Terrorgeists, vampires, some of the best characters in the game. There's just a lot of combos that you can do with the army that makes them very painful to play against. And that's why, for me, they hit the top 5. Don't have them myself, but I've played against them many a times. The Lawmaster's got a very big Vampire Counts army, and it certainly always makes for an interesting game when we're playing him. Now, for me, in 4th place, I'm going to put Demons, which for a lot of people that could be an interesting choice in 4th. They might think it's due to be higher. Now, I think that, we don't need to talk about the Wall of Nurgle. It's arguably one of the best standalone lists in the game. It's got 1 or 2 weaknesses, excluding those weaknesses, you're not going to struggle with a lot of stuff. And the longer the game goes on, if your opponent can't kill Epidemus, then you just start to steamroll. And yeah, I mean, if you're not coming up against them with something like Death Magic or maybe Shadow, or a way to consistently and effectively kill those characters, you really do have to think up a game plan against them, Now, obviously, there's things like the Reign of Chaos. Now, that can be very good for them. It can give them extra wall saves, spawn units, can kill your units. But also, similarly, it can kill their units, can reduce their wall save, make them take tests, demonic instability, all that kind of stuff. So it can be quite hard for the demons. And that's why I think, for me, because I feel like, there's other lists in the book that can be good, and in the right hands can be quite competitive. I've seen many people play, I've seen a few people play with some lists that aren't Wall of Nurgle and do very well with them, and that is through just sheer good play. But because your hands are tied behind your back, really, if you're not taking that hyper competitive list in the Wall of Nurgle. But that's why, for me, I don't think they rank quite as highly as the others, just because things like the Realm of Chaos, on the day really can ruin your game for you. And also, they can be, dare I say it, a bit of a one-trick pony with a Wall of Nurgle. But I'm sure I'll get some stick for that. So, swiftly moving on. In 3rd place for me is the Warriors of Chaos. I've just started an army recently myself, painfully trying to get together some of the old out-of-production models whilst integrating some of the newer warriors into the list. And I think they're great. I think in contrast to Demons, almost any god choice as a theme can be really competitive, especially in the right build, and They've got access to such a vast amount of laws and magic, including obviously 3 god-specific magics. Slanesh being a very often used one for spells like Cacophonic Choir, which is devastating on the bubble. And, you know, items like you got Chaos Familiar, all the demonic powers. It just adds an additional level of competitiveness to all their characters that general people don't have. You know, because you've got your special items in the book, you've got your special items from the core rule book, like everybody does, and then you get to throw on top of it all of your additional demonic powers, which, you know, I think does make for a very competitive list. There's a lot of really good builds you can do, and, you know, they've got some fantastic special characters. People like Throg, you know, making Trolls core really hard to deal with for some armies. They don't have an answer for it. You know, no, they've got weaknesses, absolutely, but also similarly, if you've not got something to combat that, Throg and 8 or 9 Trolls is terrifying. It really is. They've got fantastic monsters. You know, the Chimera, horrific, really is horrible. Breath weapon, multiple attacks, poison attacks. It flies, regen. You know, a lot of people don't really want any part of it. You know, Hell Cannons, really good artillery piece that shoots from the back that isn't an artillery piece, so it ignores certain things. And then, you know, Skull Crushers, the list goes on. For me, I think that things like the Demon Prince, Nurgle, Festus, those classic Warriors of Chaos standard builds, if you would, really make them competitive. You know, I've not even talked about the 3 up rerolling ones Disclord. But for me, I think Warriors hit third because I feel like there's other armies that maybe slightly do things better or can be quite hard counters to them in general. But, you know, you're never going to have an easy game against Warriors of Chaos. They can be very punishing, really high armour, really high damage and toughness. So, you know, I'm starting to burn through these, but let's get to my second place choice. Now, my second place choice was High Elves. I don't think there's only so much we can say about these. They're just fantastic, the High Elves, really. I've had a lot of success with them, both competitively and just for friendly games. They're fantastic. I mean, they've got some of the best special characters in the game on a whole. Alariel, Teclis, Caradhrian, Tyrion. Just fantastic, really. You know, dare we talk about Banner of the World Dragon? I think that speaks for itself when you're talking about competitiveness. And they've just got such a breadth of choice. You know, like similar to other armies, they do suffer in some choices. I think High Elves core stops them from being one of the best armies. Stops them from being the best army in the game, in my opinion. Their core choice can often feel like attacks. And again, I'm sure that people are going to be slamming me for that one, but that's just how I see it. You know, I think Seaguard can be a bit too expensive. Spear Elves and Archers are a very mid-tier choice. You know, Illyrian Reavers, brilliant, and Silver Helms can be good in the right list. I think that's all the core. Someone could be catching me out there, but for me, I think that's one of the biggest places they suffer. But they've got fantastic magic items, the Book of Hoeth, you know, things like the Scroll of Hoeth, sorry, not the Scroll of Teclis, the Sword of Teclis. But, you know, the access to the magic items they've got are really good. They've got access to the Lore of High Magic, which is an absolute toolbox of a lore. Really is one of the best lores in the game, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of it. I use it a lot. I always use it when I use High Elves, and I love it on my Lizardmen. But I think the thing that makes them good is that there's lots of competitive lists. It's not just the one big list, like, for example, Wall and Nurgle. You know, you can take Alariel and White Lions. You can take Phoenix Guard. You can take Lost of Frost Arts. Frost Arts, I ain't even touched on the Frost Arts yet. The fact that you can get 3 in a list comfortably with an amazing special character in Caradhrian on the back, and, you know, everything that they do in the game, people don't really need to hear me wax lyrical about them. They're fantastic. And it was a hard choice for them to come up in second like that, just because I love them. But, you know, I think there's a lot of people that might know what my first choice is, but we're going to get to that. But first, we have hit the honourable mention. Now, for me, my honourable mention, it's got to be the Lizardmen. I absolutely love them. I think they're a fantastic range. They're so cool. I mean, who doesn't love 6-foot-tall dinosaurs? Who just doesn't love dinosaurs, really? They're fantastic. But they're super cool. They were my first army that I really started to play Warhammer competitively with. And I remember taking them to my first Throne of Skulls, and they're just so much fun. You know, they've got a lot of answers to a lot of stuff, a lot of tough stuff in the game. They've got lots of little toolbox pieces like sharpened horns and access to a lot of high magic. You know, I mentioned it again. They've got fantastic skirmishers in skinks and camos. They've got some really good monsters. The slam powers are really good as well. You know, it's they're just a really tough army. They can be really grindy to get through, and I've had a lot of success with them. Now, I would have loved to have put them in my 5th place, but do I believe that, you know, they're better than vampire counts? I don't know. Part of me thinks they are, but I think that the vampire counts book is more balanced than lizard men, and on a whole, I think they're just slightly above lizard men. So that's why, for me, sadly, I couldn't put them in the top. I couldn't put them in the top 5, but they were my honourable mention. And now on to the first place. You all probably already know what it's going to be, but you know, it's got to be the Dark Elves. To quote the Duke, I think he said it best when he said that they do have one of the most obnoxious units in the game, being the Witch Elves and the Cauldron of Blood. And it really is, as a man who's used it many, many times, it's just abhorrent. You just keep rolling until your enemy's dead. But, you know, they do have their weaknesses, and obviously I would say that, but I love them. Dark Elves got to be the one for me. They were an army that I bought and built just to play competitively, just for the absolute top end of gaming, and they haven't ever really let me down. Other than when you come up against hard counters, things like Wood Elves you can really struggle with. Big blocked up armies. Ogres can be a tough one for them. If you don't have things like Purple Sun, you know, and they've got the Rune Maw, you're not going to get through those big blocks easily. And if they hit you in the flank, certainly on your Wish Elves, it's game. You're going to lose them. So, you know, tough blocked up armies can be really tough for you. But in general, you know, they've got fantastic choices throughout all their slots. Dark Riders, they're just Illyrian Reavers, but with a better save and a crossbow. You know, Witch Elves, fantastic core. Corsairs, underrated. It's just that they're alongside a fantastic core unit, so you don't see them as much as you probably should. And I stand by it when I say that if they were in another army book, you'd see them in every game. Now, you know, Morifar, one of the best casters in the game. She really is. Not the best, but she's up there. You know, she's got such a great casting values with stuff. The additional D3, the access to be able to pick what spells you want from what lore at the start of the game. 4 up wall save, 2 up against magical spells. You know, flying. She's just the whole shooting match, and she's so cheap for what she does. She's only like 30 or 40 points more than a wizard on a Pegasus with equivalent gear. Like, it's really hard to look at anyone else other than her when you're looking at a Lord level caster. But they got some fantastic items. The Ring of Hotek. I really like the Black Dragon Egg. Things like that. I've got a lot of time for those. And always strikes first, comboed with Murderous Prowess. It really is devastating for people to come up against. Stuff like Executioners, you know, Strike Initiative Order. A lot of the time they're 3s or 2s to wound reroll on the 1s. It just makes them really good, and I've had a lot of success with them. They rarely fail me or let me down. A lot of times if they fail, it's because I've had a hard counter or just I've played badly. But I can always count on my Dark Elves to pull me out of a hole if I'm in one. And you can just never put it past them. A lot of people don't like them. A lot of people have slated me for using them, and but I will continue to just to stick it to the haters, you could say. But for me, we reached the end of my top 5. Now, if you think I'm on the money, or if in fact you think I've lost my mind, please feel free to comment below and let me know what you think, where you think I went wrong, and what you think is the best army in the game, and why is that Dark Elves. But as always, if you like this video, head back to the Night of the Realm mustering ground where you can find others like this and a whole lot more. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time on the Quint-essentials.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright?
Do it for Warhammer!